Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Unsighted Radio. It's been a long time, and I hope you have all been doing well and are feeling fine. Chad Michael Boughton here, and of course, I'm always here with my good friend, Simon O'Gorman. Simon, say hello, my friend.
Hiya, mate. We're back.
We are back. If you can't hear it in our voice or in my voice, we're excited. We've been working on revamping the podcast, finding a new platform where we can do more with the platform, helping with editing, transcribing, making it more accessible, but also giving us the ability to interact more with our fans and longtime listeners. So, this is the first episode that we are recording on Riverside. It will be the official home for the Unsighted Radio going forward. Riverside gives us the ability to stream live to other platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and even Twitch. So if you're watching live and you're on those platforms, you'll be able to get into the chat, communicate with us, have input on the podcast as it's recording. So exciting stuff there. Lots of other cool tools that allow us to just really make this more just awesome. But we're excited and thank you for waiting. We know that you guys have wanted new episodes, and well, the wait is over. We're back, babies.
We're here. We're live. We're gonna kick ass.
Yes, but before we go any further, please, if you could subscribe and follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It could be on Apple Podcasts, could be on Amazon Music, could be on Audible, could be on Spotify, could be on Google Podcast and Overcast. Please join the Unsighted Army by following the Unsighted Radio, UNSYS and Yankee TED, the Unsighted Radio. Whew. Let's get going. Simon, how you been doing, buddy?
You know what? I've been really good. We're starting to see that big glowy ball in the sky in the UK, and for me, I like the cold, but I
Mm-hmm.
like the sunshine. And the winter is particularly tough when it's dark in the mornings, dark through the day, and dark in the evenings. And
Mm.
we can hear the birds again. We're waking up to the sound of the birds, and I never get fed up of that. So I'm really good. Been really busy working with lots of different people. I've had actually quite a few people with sight impairment actually over the
Oh.
past few weeks. Um, some due to cognitive sight impairment and
Mm.
others due to optical sight impairment. And I have to say, it's given me the opportunity to play with augmented glasses. And I know you told me about them and you said, look, these are fantastic. They really give you a lot of independence. And I can see how. I mean, even
Mm.
with the Meta AI glasses and the recent updates with much more detailed explanations of what's in front of you and being able to read and select parts of a page, it's fantastic. And the price point,
Yeah.
it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, you being in the assistive technology world, I being in a world where I need assistive technology, we both know the reality that a lot of times accessibility is just not affordable. Um, it's just a sad reality that there is a purple pound. These companies need to make money to keep building these devices and improving upon them, but sometimes the cost is just too high to even get access to the technology. So, as much as I love Orcam and think they're an amazing device, they're just not affordable.
Yeah.
And the Meta Ray Bans, they might not do everything that the Orcam can do, but they are fantastic. They have so many great features, and it's a lot more affordable. So, it's definitely a conversation you and I have had before, and we can
Mm.
probably keep on having. But it's like the affordability of accessibility. It's like, how do we even start equipping people with this amazing technology if they can't even afford it themselves?
Yeah, I mean that. So, I mean, without going into a massive discussion, because we do like to discuss these things. The only challenge you've got with the augmented glasses is it's based on photographs and
Mm.
AI recognition on those photographs. So you are taking pictures of everything around you, which does still have, for some people, concerns around privacy and things like that.
Mm.
Whereas, I don't see in the UK anyway, unfortunately, AI or Meta AI glasses being able to be used in, say, a school, for instance, or a workplace simply because of that. Whereas, if you do have something like the Orcam, which is a phenomenal piece of kit, albeit, it does come with that price tag. It doesn't necessarily have similar issues with the privacy thing. So, we do, as a community and as technologists, need to get around how we deal with that. Maybe more on board processing, which will obviously come in the future. But at the moment, while it relies on, in the cloud AI, and it
Mm-hmm.
relies on big social media based platforms, and we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about some of this in our news, it might not be possible to use. But still super excited with what
Yep,
it
yep,
does.
yep. As for myself, I'm doing pretty great. And by the way, you'll probably notice that you can actually see our faces now. Because we're live. So, yeah, if you've always wondered, like, what does Simon and what does Chad look like? Well, now you know. Pale, right? Pretty pale.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, face for
Uh,
radio.
yeah, I know. The voice for radio, not so much the face for radio. But I'm doing well. Like you, weather's getting better. We had that ice storm, and man, was it so brutally cold. And of course, I say cold for Florida. I mean, other places in the U.S. were way colder, but you know, if it gets in the 40s here in South Florida, we get upset. But we were getting like 20-degree weather, and it was just miserable. So I'm happy that the sun's out more, 60s and 70s, and also lots of more birds, which means Hemingway is happy because he's half golden retriever, and they love birds.
Right. Oh, hopefully they don't bring you any as little presents like cats do.
Nah.
Oh, that's good. That's
Nah.
good.
He's a good boy for the most part, but I am doing great. I've been busy myself. I've been participating in the games for Blind Gamers' fifth annual Game Jam, and I've been a part of an amazing team making a game that is inspired by blueprints called Delver's Folly. Um, we are, of course, recording this March 1st, so by tomorrow, uh, we will submit. So,
Mhm.
hey, if you're listening to this at a later date, go to itch.io, look for Delver's Folly, give it a play. It's an amazing game. I don't say that just because I worked on it for the accessibility. I say that because the programmer, musician, sound effect engineer, I mean, everybody cooked and they made a banger of a game.
Sounds awesome, mate. I mean, I've heard you talking about it for the past few weeks, and it just sounds like you and the team have had an absolute blast putting this game together.
Yeah, it's been challenging. Lots of bugs. I don't know, glitches. Just having to work through all these problems with the UI and making sure everything works and doesn't break when you add new stuff. So there's been challenges, but it's always been fun to figure out together. And the great thing is, there's going to be at most, if not more than 20 submissions. So that's 20 new games that are blind accessible. Obviously, different levels. Some more prototypes, some more demos, some full games, and then some are basically just like, this is how I'm going to start working on a full version of my game. I'm going to start
Mm.
by building something for the game jam, and then I'll work on it post jam. So like, uh, lots of new games are going to be coming from this game jam, and they're all blind accessible. So couldn't be better.
That's amazing. So, just for the people that haven't been sort of following it, Chad, can you give us a quick synopsis on what the game's about?
Yeah, so Delver's Folly, it is based inspired, I should say, by Blueprints, which is kind of like this board game where you build and draft rooms. So we took that idea and made it our own. It was the brainchild of a developer named Joozey, Joozey, out of the Netherlands. And basically, what it is that you're in this dungeon and it has a manticore in it. And basically, your objective is to get to the lair of the manticore. But it's not as simple as just open the door, you go to the manticore. No. So you start at the entrance of the dungeon, and you can go north, east, south, west. You have a survey feature that will let you know in which direction those rooms are. And there's also a queue for when you can go through a door, it's unlocked. If you're going to walk into a wall, which room you've already been through or just gone through. And then if you go towards a locked door where you need a key to unlock it. So you get all those noises from the survey function. So when you walk through a door, you have 3 rooms that you can draft. Basically, the Manticore has stripped the foundation of the dungeon. So he doesn't want you to get to them. So he's going to make it hard for you to get there to his lair. So you have to draft the rooms. There's 4 different room types. There's mines, grove rooms, abyss rooms, and then ruins. And you have to unlock all the room types. And the only way to do that is to solve the puzzles of the spirits who inhabit the dungeon. They have their own puzzles. Each room type has a puzzle tied to it that's important to solving the mystery of the Manticore, but also figuring out how to defeat the Manticore. So it is all random generated. One run will never be the same as the last or the next. So in terms of playability, I mean, it's pretty much endless. You know, sometimes you might have to retreat and start over. Sometimes you might have to backtrack just so you can keep exploring. No run will be the same, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to build the best path to the Manticore's lair.
Well, it sounds awesome, and I'll tell you what, mate. Let's put a link down in the comment section so that people can get to it, and maybe we should do a special feature stream where we play the game. You can
Oh,
tell
dude,
us what's
I'd
happening.
love if you played the game, and I, of course, sat there as someone who knows what to do and just see if Simon O'Gorman, the retro gamer himself, is able to beat a modern game.
Yeah, let's move on from that.
But thanks for letting me plug that. It's something that I've been very passionate about, and it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, go to the Games for Blind Gamers 5th annual Game Jam page. You can find it on itch.io. Just type in Games for Blind Gamers 5. Like literally the first thing you find is going to be the link to the official page, and then you can see all the submissions by going to the submissions tab, and there's games to play. And if you're a blind gamer, have fun.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're doing well.
Alrighty, but with all that out of the way, let's get into the stuff that people have come here to hear us wax poetic about. Let's get into some news, Simon.
Yeah, let's do it. So I've got some really cool stuff to cover this week. So we've got a bit of things that are otherworldly, we've got aspects that are technology based, and we've also got things that are going to affect different people in different ways. But I'm going to start off with the Artemis 2 project, which NASA's currently going through. Now, for those of you that aren't following Artemis, Artemis is the return to Moon. And eventually onto Mars, if we get that far. However, I've been tracking it. I'm just really, yes, we've had moon landings before, and I know there's been a lot of controversy around that, and we're not going to go into this on the podcast, but, nobody's been back to the moon since 1972, and now we've got 4 astronauts that hopefully in April, because we've had a couple of setbacks during one of their wet trials. They found a leak which they had to fix, and now they've got something wrong with another leak, so they've had to take it all the way back to the big hangar and fix that. But hopefully in April we'll be going for a slingshot around the moon, and that's going to be so amazing. And then moving on from that, originally Artemis 3 was going to land on the moon, but what they're going to do now is Artemis 3 is actually going to do some things in low Earth orbit, specifically looking at training, trialing systems, looking at how they work and getting everything finally dialed in, so that Artemis 4, which I believe will be in 2028, will finally do the moon landing. And I think it's going to be, I'm certainly looking forward to having that feeling that the people had in 1969 with the first moon landing, of being sat there with, the moon is what, 4.5 billion years old or something stupid. It's probably even more than that. And we're going to have people landing on it and then eventually living on it. And that's going to be fantastic.
I guess I never realized that we haven't been back to the moon that long.
It's been a long time. Yeah, long time.
That's crazy to think. Crazy to think they want to live on the moon. There's nothing really there that promotes survivability.
It doesn't, but I think there's an awful lot about how the moon was created, what it's made up of, the geology aspects of it, and from what I'm reading, there's going to be an awful lot about looking at the geology of the moon.
It was made out of cheese, by the way.
It is made out of cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen Button Moon, which was a kids program from probably the 80s, maybe even the early 90s, but it is made of cheese, and people aren't going to go hungry.
I just imagine one day, like for animation fans out there, like Futurama, I just imagine one day there's the freaking Moonland, like basically like a theme park on the moon that people just go to visit.
Yeah, well, the thing that amazes me is the way technology is moving. So I've been watching on Apple TV. We're not sponsored by them, by the way, but if Apple TV wanted to sponsor us, For All Mankind. And the TV show is about what happens when the Russians won the race to the moon rather than the Americans. Yeah. And, a lot of things happened exactly the same way as they did. There were a few oddities with regards to they played with history and how things would play out. But the one thing that they highlighted is technology moved a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. In the sense of the Americans seemed a lot more driven to build the technology, get things going. It was about getting the first people living on the moon, and then it was about, building bigger lunar cities and things like that. It wasn't as big as a city, but like a little town, etc. Then it went on to the minerals of the moon and mining and things like that, and the commercial aspects, such as what we're seeing with SpaceX and Blue Yonder. Is that the name of the Amazon one?
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin, sorry. And I think if we can start this up again, we may start to see even larger jumps in technology and progression and things like that we haven't seen for nearly 50 years, over 50 years.
That was the unintended consequence of the space race, was that, obviously we here in the States thought that if Russia was to get, well, I mean, they did. They got Sputnik out first before we did, so they had the first satellite. But there's this whole idea of that, like, oh, they're going to use satellites as weapons, and if they get to space, like, what does that mean for us? So it's like, it was kind of like, it was like a dick measuring contest, basically. to put it one way. But it's like, yeah, we wanted to show that we could do it first, that we were superior, that our technology was the best, and competition breeds innovation. So I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely the space race led to a lot of technology being developed that otherwise probably would have taken decades before it actually started getting around to being created.
Yeah, and it just innovation. Looking forward, people getting excited about things. I get the whole maybe we should be sorting ourselves out first before we spend that amount of money. But actually, you need that progression, in my personal opinion, and it only generally leads to better things and really solving problems that can help us here on our own planet as well. So
As long as we don't start creating Death Stars, then we're good.
I don't know. Do you fancy the dark side, mate?
I mean, I don't know. Am I more Jedi or am I more Sith Lord? I mean, where's that quiz? You got the like the Potter quiz. Where's like the Jedi or Sith Lord quiz?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of a mix between the two, I think.
I feel like I would be a mix, but I mean, there's probably some aspects of me where I'm just like, exert your feelings.
The dark side is strong with this one. Yeah,
I mean, they do have lightning hands, so I mean, that is pretty enticing.
It is. True. And being able to deal with the force, I mean, that'd be quite cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But that's a cool article. Thanks for bringing
Okay.
it to our attention. Yeah, so if you guys want to learn more about that, we'll make sure to leave the link to the article so you can learn more about Artemis and all the voyages that are coming up. Looks like there's going to be some more space exploration. Maybe the moon can be a vacation destination for everybody real soon.
I love the idea. So, moving on, because we got to talk about that. The next article is with regards to the UK. I'm really sorry. There's quite a lot of UK centric aspects in our podcast today, but it's the banning of social media for under 16s, and I was actually very surprised at how widespread and what sort of services this actually covers. Because I was thinking, the likes of Facebook or X, formerly known as Twitter, Reddit, Pinterest, that kind of thing. But it also covers YouTube. Now, I know there's a kids version of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But the ban at the moment doesn't differentiate the two. It's kind of a ban on YouTube under the age of 16. Now, I know an awful lot of young people that benefit from access to things like YouTube. Whether that is for self-regulation, to be able to see the programs they like, or whether it's for educational purposes. And I thought I would raise this one and just have a reasonably quick discussion around, how far should we go? And are there other things that we should be doing to protecting our young people rather than banning them from accessing everything?
I mean, I think it's a slippery slope. You start banning access to one group. When does it come to affect other people of other age groups? But also, yes, the internet is a very dangerous place, especially if you're going on the dark web. You can do anything, get anything. I mean, it's ugly, and it can be very dangerous, and it can be very harmful to your actual real life health. But also, there's a lot of benefits from technology. Like, for instance, I know, of course, I'm not a 16-year-old kid. I'm, 30-year-old adult, but I know so many people that like they only learn about a recipe they end up cooking and enjoying because they saw someone making it on YouTube, or they're trying to do a project at home and they don't know how to do something. So there's a tutorial on YouTube, or you go on Reddit to ask questions and get information from experts. There's a lot of things you can do that are very beneficial to you and can help you to learn new things that you otherwise would not know how to do if you just tried doing it on your own. So, like, there's two sides to this internet coin. There's the bad, and then there's the good. And I do believe we should be doing more to protect children online, because it's it's no secret that there's predators online disguising themselves as children trying to connect with other children. I mean, that's just the reality. But should we ban all people under the age of 16 from the internet? I mean, I don't know. Because where do we stop? Like, where do we stop with that? Where do we go? Like, if we start banning 16, when does it get to where, okay, now everybody has to show biometric information or an ID? Because, I mean, I know Discord is doing that. It's starting this month in March. Where basically all accounts are being turned over to age restricted. And in order to basically get access, you have to either show your face, so you have to have your face scanned, or you have to give them a picture of your ID. And to both of that, I say fuck off. I'm 30, I'm in my 30s, 33 in May. I've been on the internet for 20 plus years. If you can't at least see, that I have been on the internet for more than 16 years, then, that's your problem, not mine. I'm not going to prove that to you because I shouldn't have to. So, again, I'm on one hand, I'm like, protect the kids. Absolutely. But I don't think it just stops at kids. I think we start seeing restrictions on everybody, and I think there's just more control. And I don't know. I think it's a very slippery slope.
I think banning the internet would be pretty grim. I mean, you never know. I mean, it might get really bad that they do start looking at things like that, but it has so much benefit. I would like to think that we can work on better technical controls by the larger companies. Are they doing enough? Question mark. I'm not really in a position to say whether they are or they aren't. The evidence would suggest that they're not. But then, what technical controls can you put in place to protect against pretty much everything that's bad? And let's face it, there's a lot of bad stuff out there.
And the thing is that they found ways to get behind these biometric face scans using like in-game characters because of how realistic some game faces are. So I know that recently when Death Stranding 2 came out, they were using a picture of one of the main characters' face, and it would actually get you through biometric scans. Like, it would approve you as being the age of that character, which was an adult. So it's like there's always going to be creative ways that people find to get past these check marks. Like, if someone wants to get on the internet, they will get on the internet. Eventually there will be a way they find to overcome these, these restrictions. So I think it's kind of like where, yes, you will get a lot of bad apples off, but then they're going to go other places and they're going to be in corners where it's even harder to reach and harder to get to them, harder to expose them, and then harder to protect the people that go there because they want to get through these restrictions. So again, I think you have to be very careful with something like this.
Yeah, I think it can drive things underground, which means you completely lose control of it, which can make things even scarier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was that news article.
Absolutely. All for protecting the children, but is there a better way and what are the ramifications of starting to enforce these kinds of laws? That's really what I'll be interested to see unfold going forward.
Yep, agreed. So the final news article is something that's rather close to my heart because I love technology. You love technology, and this week we are about to see some new launches from Apple. Now, love Apple or hate them, they are very innovative and they do come out with some interesting things. Now, I will stick my neck out there and say I don't think we're going to see Apple glasses. I don't think that's going to be the case. However, there is currently rumours that they are going to release a new MacBook that has touch screen capability. And some of the mock-ups, now whether it's true or not, because you never really know, so take this a rumour as being crap until Apple actually announce it themselves. But it's going to be a hybrid computer that has not only keyboard and mouse input, but also touch screen and stylus input. And I think being able to combine those two aspects is going to make it very, very interesting.
I would be very interested to test this from a accessibility perspective because Apple computers use the same screen reader as their phones, so they both use VoiceOver. Obviously, I personally, so it's weird for me. The only phone I use is an iPhone because they are the most accessible. They're the easiest to learn. They're the easiest to onboard someone to start using if they're blind. But I've never been a big fan of their laptops. I've always preferred PCs, always preferred Windows over Mac from a user interface perspective. However, I would really be interested to see if, with this new touchscreen capability and stylus, if it supports the voiceover, and if so, how much more streamlined it would be to use this hybrid. Because I'm telling you, I truly believe when it comes to my phone, I can use my phone faster and more efficiently than anyone else because of the voiceover. But again, that's because I'm so in tuned, I'm so learned in the systems of voiceover, the swipes, the taps, the shortcuts. Plus, I can get the information faster because I understand when the voice is talking at 80% of a speaking rate. So it would be interesting to see how much my efficiency would improve with this kind of hybrid laptop that combines keyboard, which the one big thing I hate about MacBooks is their keyboard layout on the laptop. Oh my God, do I freaking hate their keyboards. I hate all keyboards on laptops. I
Yeah.
always have a plugin. I have a plugin of an actual desktop. It's on my desk. You might be able to see it through my webcam, but I hate laptop keyboards. But if this was to function more like voiceover, tap, swipe, now we're talking a little bit something. Now we're seeing, okay, maybe I go MacBook going forward. But right now it's a rumor. We'll see if
Yeah.
anything actually happens. But if it does, I would definitely be really interested in testing it.
The thing is, it's really starting to get exciting for me. So haptics have been around for a while. And Apple and Samsung, they all use haptics to be able to make it feel like you're pressing a real button or make the screen vibrate or something like that. Now I'm starting to think, especially for people with sight impairment and blindness, is they've always talked about the haptics being able to reproduce textures. Now we've started to see the introduction of braille screens.
Yeah, the
And
Monarch.
yeah, with regards to being able to represent imagery and things like that. Well, imagine you had a touch screen with the haptics behind it, that it was tactile for people with sight impairment. So you moved across the screen and you could actually feel a physical icon, either with braille or some form of identifier there. And that came built into the screen as standard. I think that just be revolutionary and amazing.
Yeah, I mean that comes down to what kind of screen they use in terms of the LCD and the LED. Like how, does all of that, the screen in front of all the wires and chips, like
Mm.
how exactly do they put that together to then replicate the feeling of surfaces? I mean, it's definitely possible. I just guess it comes down to an engineer in terms of like hardware meets software, and then what's the best material, what's the best way of running it through the computer so that it's felt. Um, it's not impossible, but definitely interested to see how
Mm.
that would be implemented.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't think we're actually anywhere near that at the moment. But it just strikes me as there's a lot of opportunity for this to become something even better.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, um, I'd love that. Like, I'd love being able to like just touch my laptop and have it like function like
Mm.
my phone screen with the swipes and the double taps and the being able to feel when I'm on a folder or when I'm on an icon. I mean that would be pretty dope, as the kids say.
Yeah, yeah. Get down with the kids there, Chad. You've already
Hmm.
said you're
So yeah,
33.
I want to see more. If this is real,
Mm.
then I hope it gets announced, and then if not, then I hope that someone starts working on it because I think there's a lot of potential with this type of device.
Well, I think Wednesday, the 4th of March, invites have gone out to the Apple press. And I think we're going to see, in Tim Cook's own words, you're going to see something that you haven't seen before.
All right. Well, we will report on any breaking updates when we come back with another episode. And if it does get revealed, then we'll definitely make sure to let you know. Well, it happened.
Yeah. So that's my three news, mate. I thought I'd start off a bit different this week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good mix of everything. The great unknown of space, whether we should ban the internet to 16 and under. And then, of course, always great to talk about new technology, especially when it has the ability to be accessible and assistive. So, a really good mix, mate. A lot of great articles. Good job.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Alrighty, well, you want to get into the big boy topic?
I think we should get into the big boy
Alrighty.
topic.
Well, we have a pretty big main event for our big talking point today, as we always do. If you're not familiar with Simon and I's kind of format, we like to do a couple just like articles about breaking news and headlines. Just give us something to chew on and talk about. And of course, going forward, with you guys being able to watch this live, you'll be able to share your thoughts on all these articles. Tell us what you think. We might even read them live on air as we're recording. So you might get to be a part of our discussion. So definitely feel free when these episodes are live to comment and share your thoughts on any of the articles. We'd love to hear what you think and get you involved in our conversation, especially though when it comes to these big boy topics, as I like to call them. Because these are never easy conversations. There's never a right or wrong answer. It's just a big discussion about something happening in the world that has a lot of impact on the disability community. With that being said, how about we get into today's big boy topic?
So, today we are talking about the whole world of schools being truly inclusive. Now, I just want to add a couple of caveats to this, okay? So, I'm relatively new to this. I'm not a parent that's had to deal with SEND issues. So, I am literally going by what has been publicised by the UK government in order to drive this conversation. However, I think there's a lot of aspects that need uncovering. There's been two papers released recently. The first one is a policy white paper from the UK government called Every Child Achieving and Thriving, which is 120 pages of the government saying how they're going to make schools more accessible for everybody. And that's not just people with special educational needs and disabilities, that is literally everything. We have got quite a few challenges in the UK, specifically with working class level. And, you know, at the moment, it's looking as though 1 in 4 children in the UK are not attending school regularly,
Mm.
which is a shocking number.
Hmm.
And that's definitely the case in my local area of Gloucestershire in the UK, which is near, well, it's kind of the cusp of the southwest and the West Midlands. The next one is Send Reform, putting
Mm.
children and young people first, which we'll get into a lot more detail, which is specifically around special educational needs and disabilities. Sorry, my friend, you were going to say something.
No, I just want to, for those of us here in the States, obviously I know what the white papers are because you've explained it to me and I've learned more with all my amazing colleagues that live in the UK. But for those that aren't familiar, can you explain exactly what the white paper's purpose is? Because it is very interesting in terms of how it affects, government and law in your country.
Yeah, so the aim of the main white paper, which is every child achieving and thriving, is about making schools accessible. So, regardless of your background, regardless of any particular special needs, although saying that the ability to go to school should not be classed as a special need, that should just be a right for everybody. And it outlines what the UK government is going to do in order to make that happen. Now, on the back of that, they're also doing the Send reform. Now, we've got quite a lot of challenges in the UK in the sense that young people with special educational needs and disabilities, it's tough at the moment. There aren't enough special education provisions. And there's been a lot of unregistered alternative provisions popping up around the country, which is, makeshift schools that are popping up in town halls and churches and things like that, where people who can't necessarily go to school for whatever reason can go there and still get some form of education. We've also got the reform of the educational and healthcare plan, put my teeth back in, process. Now, the whole idea of the HCP was people between year 0 and 25 years of age would have a healthcare plan that outlines all of their requirements in order for them to be able to achieve the maximum they can achieve given their special educational needs and disabilities. Unfortunately, that has not been so successful, or is not as successful now. We're seeing more and more young people with neurodivergency not being able to go to school. We're seeing more and more people being forced to go to mainstream schools, and the mainstream schools can't cope with it. So they are now looking at how they're going to reform that to make it so that everybody has the opportunity of an education that's suitable for them, and that they've got everything in place that would enable them to be able to maximize and make the most of that education.
I guess what I find interesting about the white paper, system is that it's made available to the public. So, like, when your government is trying to make like this major change, like, okay, we're going to reform accessibility and inclusion in education. Like, they basically put this out to the public, and then the public does have the ability to, go against it, get it to where it doesn't get passed or not approved. So it's very interesting because I feel like in my country, if they wanted to change or cut something, they just do it, and then everybody else would be like, well, screw you guys. We want this change. We're going to make this change. If it gets the votes, it's passed.
Yeah, and as long as enough people make a fuss, it can really have a big impact on whether something is passed in the House of Commons or not. But it's worth mentioning the EHCP program, and I'm going to class myself as somebody that's just come into this and is just starting to learn about it themselves. But I have met a lot of people where either they couldn't get an EHCP for their child and their child should get one, or the EHCP they were given by the local authority wasn't up to the level that was needed in order for their child to be able to excel in whatever it is they were doing. Now in 2025, and this is round figures, there were 25,000 appeals against the local authorities because of EHCPs that either were rejected or didn't contain what was needed. And it's worth mentioning these are legally binding. So once an EHCP is in place, it is legally binding, and what is put in there with regards to provisions for that child has to be delivered by law. So unfortunately, there's a really big legal battle with the local authority, and it does affect how schools look at you and things like that, because it does ruffle the feathers, which you have to do. 99% of all appeals were won by the parents. 99%, which means that all of the rejections and the problems and things like that were deemed, somebody will probably correct us in the comments, but to me, if it's a legal binding document, that means that that child or young person has been denied something they are legally allowed to have.
I think it's just very interesting about education systems wanting to make school inclusive for everybody, and yet at the same time they haven't even began to really truly make it inclusive for children with disabilities. Even in a country like the US where we have the ADA, and there are laws that protect our rights and that we have the right to to all these same abilities and accesses as those who are not disabled, in terms of like it actually being upheld and actually doing and protecting people with disabilities, it really doesn't. And there's still like very many cases within higher education where people are not getting the accommodations that they actually require. Teachers fight against their students and their accommodations. I mean, I myself have experienced working with organizations that were supposed to be helping me get some assistive technology to help me have more access to my college work, and they didn't. They had these excuses, which I then end up finding out later on were not valid, and were never actually truly an excuse they could have given me. So I have a hard time when anyone says, well, let's make education inclusive for everybody. I'm like, you can't even make it inclusive for the people that are disabled. So how are you going to make it inclusive for everybody when you're already failing at making it pretty inclusive?
And this is the biggest problem. So a lot of this is being forced on the schools, and we're losing a lot of really good teachers at a time when we can't afford to lose teachers. We just don't have enough. We've got SENCOs who are teachers, professional teachers themselves that have specialised in special education needs and disabilities, and they're overloaded. And it's, unfortunately, they're at the front line, so they're getting the brunt of this. And
Well, yeah, and you see the cases where students with autism or other, cognitive neurodivergent um, you know, disabilities and illnesses, they are being put in these classrooms where it's not the best place for them to be learning. And then the teacher that's responsible for teaching that student has no clue what they're doing because they have not been trained. So they have no understanding of what this child needs to access information, or they just believe they're a problematic student and it's not their disability. They're just a bad student. So it's like you said, like these teachers, they're not being prepared. So they're being overloaded and they have no clue what they're doing. They have no idea how to handle these students with diverse needs. And that's where you get cases where, like, you know, you have students with neurodivergence and they have, you know, it's just too overloading for them, sensory wise, too stimulating. And, you know, they react in a way that they would react. And they're deemed problematic or angry or dangerous when it's like, well, no, you didn't take the time to understand the student's needs. You
Yeah.
placed them in an environment where they're not going to succeed.
So how many kids do you tend to have in a class in the US?
I mean, well, if we're talking like middle school,
Yeah.
high school, I mean, maybe like 20, 30,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
But then
So
if we're going into college, it can really depend. You know, I went to a college in the Gulf Coast of Florida, and there was a lot of emphasis on smaller class sizes. So a lot of time, there were just classes where there was literally 7 students, especially when I got into the upper coursework for my history degree. You know, there would be times where it's just 7 students for one class. But then there was the more open hall, like lecture rooms, where you could have 100+ students at one time learning from one professor.
So, so this is one of the major questions that has to be answered. So I know of a school in my locality where they had their budget slashed so much they had to get rid of all of their teaching assistants. So you've now got one, maybe two people if they've got one teaching assistant and they're lucky to have that in the class, looking after 30 young people, all with different needs and requirements for education. And I think even if that teacher has a lot of training in how to deal with SEND students, they're not going to have the time to provide the level of teaching required for each of the needs of each of the types of students they've got, you know, because the new white paper is trying to, you remember we were having that discussion around equality, you know, and equity. You know, the white paper to me, it seems very much like it is trying to achieve that equity where, you know, people get what they need, so they're all
Oh, well,
equal.
if Chad gets to have extended time because of his autism, or if Chad gets to have someone take notes for him because he's blind and can't see, then that means little Timmy and little Susie should also have that. But it's like, okay, but do they require it? Do they truly need that? So, you know, that's where I get upset and grumpy. It's like you can't realistically allow everybody to have the same access to accommodations because people really need them. And, you know, you kind of start to water down and make these accommodations kind of like inferior, or they don't really have the impact they should, because it's like if anyone can get it, then I don't know. I really don't know how to express what I'm thinking right now, but like it makes me mad to know like, oh well, why do you get extended time? Why do you get printed out? Why do you not have to do these quizzes that require us to use clickers to look at a projector, X, Y, Z, so on and so forth, yada yada. It's just like because I'm fucking disabled.
And I think I mean, that's one thing the UK is pretty good at, actually, from what I've seen. So, you know, if a young person or a child needs extra time, they get extra time based on what they need that extra time for. And if they don't, they don't get it, you know. So from that perspective, it's fine. But there's no point giving somebody extra time if they haven't had the teaching that allows them to be able to answer the questions in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we're getting to. And I know I keep harping on
Yeah,
about
why
it.
give someone who has 20/20 vision large print? They don't need the large print.
No, no, they don't. But the one thing schools are really going to have to adopt is better technology usage. And everybody uses technology, not just, you know, the people that need the extra. And the reason why I say that, and, you know, the dogs are barking. The reason why I say that is in the reform it talks a lot about assistive technology and things like that, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is everybody needs to be able to use it so that there is a peer group. So that all of the people that are with the young people, whether that's their peers or teachers, all know how to use the same technology. And by them being able to all use the same technology, it means the teacher won't get so overwhelmed. Because if little Timmy needs support with a screen reader or needs support with being able to get the information read out to him by something like, I don't know, Everways Read and Write, for instance, they know how to use it as well and they can help little Timmy do that.
Mm. I want to go back real quick to something you said earlier, and that was about how not every teacher is going to know how to handle students in a large class. So, you know, like you have like 50 students, and then of course, you never know. You could have 5, 7 students that have disabilities, you know, of all types. And I've seen that happen. I've been in a class during my college years where, you know, again, small class size, maybe at max 15 students. But of course, with myself and then 2 other students that at least I knew of. So 3 disabled in that class. And I had already had classes with this professor, so they understood my needs in terms of a blind student. But there was another student in the class that was autistic, and she did not treat him very well. I'm not going to say any names, you know, because I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is that I've seen it play out in real time where there's been a student that I'm in the class with who's also disabled. They were autistic, and the teacher did not know how to treat them right. Just did not know how to communicate with them. Didn't understand how they communicated, and they really just treated them very poorly.
Right.
And I actually put in because you know you have like that end of year like rate your teacher.
Yeah.
I went and you know made points of where like I think that this professor should have some sensitivity training when it comes to students with neurodivergence because I don't think they truly understand what these students are going through and what their needs are. And the way that she interacted with this one individual makes me very concerned that this is how she could be interacting with other students who are autistic. So I definitely put it in my review where I'm like, I think this teacher needs some training.
Yeah. And the problem is it's probably not isolated either. You know, when you're under a lot of pressure, you're under a lot of strain, and I'm not saying that teacher necessarily was, but it can bring out the bad in people, and there is a big safeguarding challenge around that as well. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and we've talked about this before, about the dilution of, the terms that are used for people who are disabled or have chronic illness. And one of the things that I noticed in the paper is that we had special educational needs units. So that was specifically for people with disabilities, neurodivergency, anybody that had things where they needed additional support in order to be able to attend schools. They're now changing that to inclusion bases.
Yes, I remember this conversation we had off the air about changing special education, special needs to inclusive basis.
And people do get hung up, and I can see why they're doing it, right? I can see the whole thing about nobody is excluded. Everybody's included. It absolutely doesn't matter who, what, where you come from, whatever.
Yeah, and I get also from like your needs aren't special. They are, their needs that should be met no matter what. Like, I can understand the word special with education and needs having a negative connotation. I can understand that. So if they're wanting to get rid of that kind of stigma of special needs means, bad, then I can understand them wanting to try and change it to another world. But again, we get into the whole like when we start changing language, we start to get away from like what actually means something. You start to, like you said, dilute the language, and then it doesn't really even mean what it should mean anymore. Like you don't get to like the example I always give is I work at Southeastern Guide Dogs. And I was in marketing for corporate fundraising.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, Southeastern Guide Dogs. If I say that to someone, they're going to know one, guide dogs. Then they must do something with guide dogs. So that means they must be doing something with blind people. Southeast, well, it's in the United States. That must mean they're located in the southeastern part of the Americas. So they are the guide dogs in the southeast of America. They decided to change their name to Dogs Incorporated. And I always joke and say, if I just came up to you and said, hey, you want to go to Dogs Incorporated? Does anyone know what the fuck that means? Like, what do you think they do at Dogs Incorporated? Like, oh, do they self-engineer robot dogs? Do they provide preventatives and dog food? Like, what the fuck is Dogs Incorporated?
Yeah, and this is my concern. I mean, okay, if you don't like the word special, extra educational needs. I mean, the fact is, when you put somebody in that category where they need additional help or additional support, whether that is from, other people interventions or technology interventions and things like that, it's still a need. It's got nothing to do with your right to education or your right to attend school or things like that. It's just something that's needed in order to allow you to be able to succeed within that environment. And I just don't think inclusion basis does that. It just seems
inclusion basis sounds like a study group. It sounds like the name of like a research institute that is doing like DEI research studies. I don't think, this is what helps students with disabilities and chronic illnesses get access to their education. It's like, and again, I'd love to hear what our audience thinks about this and if they have any better recommendations. Because like, what about just alternative learning? I mean, is that problematic in terms of its language? Alternative learning means that you learn in a different way than other students. I mean, are there other words, other language we can use that better stresses, accommodating students with disabilities and chronic illness? Because inclusion basis. I don't know if that's it. I don't know if that's the one.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting way that they've described it. So, they've said inclusion bases. We will replace the current terms SEN unit, resourced provision, and pupil support unit, sometimes referred to by settings as internal alternative provision, and we'll come on to that in a second, to make it easier for parents to understand the support available for their child. Instead, we will collectively describe this provision as inclusion bases. So let's tear that apart, right?
What's wrong with pupil support? I think that's pretty very, clear. Support for pupils. I mean, sometimes there's just like that one that you know what that means when it's said. Like there's no guesswork when it comes to when pupil support.
But the thing is they've said to make it easier for parents to understand the support available for their child. Inclusion basis. So instead of special educational needs unit, which, okay, we'll take the thing that, let's say special is the wrong term to be using nowadays, but extra educational needs unit or whatever, does inclusion basis even remotely get close to coming up with something that enables a parent to understand what the fuck that is?
Well, it also comes down to inclusion as a word in general. Inclusion is not just strictly for people who are disabled. Inclusion also goes with people of different races, of different genders, of different sexual orientations.
Yeah.
So, inclusion is a very broad word to use when it comes to education in terms of students who need access to education, because inclusion can be more than just disability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, internal alternative provision actually can sometimes mean that a group of young people are actually taken out of the mainstream classroom and moved into their own
That's
places.
true. Yeah.
Is that inclusive?
I guess this conversation really devolves into should we just keep the language as is and not even try changing it, because by changing it we're just making things more complicated. It's like, what is it that is really problematic and hard to understand with the current language, yet what will then be the effect of changing the language to something new, that is maybe a little bit more vague and diluted? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, should it be left alone? Should it be changed? What will be the result of changing the language? Will people actually understand the language if changed? There's so many things, in my opinion, that come out with a conversation like this. In my opinion, like the more I think about it, the more I realize this is a very this goes far beyond just like we don't want to use special education anymore. It's like, there's a lot more moving parts than just changing the language.
So this then moves me on to, so we've discussed the EHCP, and we know what it's trying to achieve, or in some cases does achieve, because it's not all EHCP provision that's wrong. But they're now going to have two levels. So for more complex needs, this is the terms they use in their paper, the EHCP will remain. Although they have, at this point, based in mind it's a white paper, so it's not legally binding or anything like that, it's basically just a paper of a load of ideas that they may or may not put in place. They haven't defined what complex needs means. And for all other young people and children, they're going to have an individual support plan, which is a record of a child or young person's barriers to learning and of the provision in place to overcome those barriers. These will be for all children and young people with SEND. Now, okay, I get that. It's no longer a legally binding document. It looks like it will be the schools that state what those provisions are likely to be. And without that education piece that you mentioned, I think that could be potentially a disaster. Because you've always got the thing that the schools are going to do what they think they can deliver rather than what's in the best interest of those kids. They talk about a framework under which these ISPs will be developed, but of course that hasn't been published yet, so nobody actually knows what that framework or decision is going to be. But it also means that come 2029, 2030, which is 4 years time, young people that currently have an EHCP could lose that provision and change to an ISP, which means that all of the stuff they have now, they could potentially lose.
Yeah, so, and again, for those of our fans and audience listening in America, North America, please feel free to, correct me if I say anything wrong going forward, because I'm not that well learned in IEPs. I just know basically what they are designed to do because I was on one. So IEP, individualized education plan. So the way that works is, living in the state of Florida as a disabled person, when I enter into the education system, they are made aware and they are alerted that Chad is blind. So because he is blind, he is going to need individualized education needs. So we're going to create a plan and we're going to give him 2 teachers. We're going to give him an O&M instructor, so an orientation and mobility instructor, who will help him learn cane. So white tip cane, how to travel safely by himself, independently and confidently. We will also then give him a TVI, so teacher for the visually impaired. And then that teacher will help him learn things like Braille as well as magnifiers. So, of course, back in my day, we didn't have any of the OCR. We literally had magnifiers and telescopes that we were given to help us see the boards better or see our paper more. It wasn't until I got out of high school when we finally started seeing more of the OCR devices or the devices that could change the color contrast of paper. So if you had it over white paper, it could turn it to black on white or white on black or yellow on green. But the TVIs were responsible for helping you get your low vision devices. And then also just teaching you how to advocate for yourself and understand like what you need in terms to be successful in the education system and to achieve your education, benchmarks. So that's what I got in an IEP. But I believe, and again, people correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is an individual thing. That is the state of Florida in the education system of Florida is responsible for getting my plan, putting it together, and then, giving me the teachers that I need to help me learn and adapt to my loss of vision, or because I might be in a progressive condition. Mine was more so to start learning while I still had vision. That way, if I did get to the point, which I did, that I was pretty much blind, I would be prepared for life post-education. So it wasn't a government thing. Obviously, there's the Board of Education, which, kind of enforces the law. But, the state of Florida was responsible for my IEP and making sure that I was outfitted with the accommodations that I needed. And then, of course, the Okaloosa County, which was the school county I was in, they were responsible for then getting me my teachers. So that's kind of how it trickled down, and that's how the IEP, at least from my, glossary understanding of it, was and is. But again, please, people who understand the system better than I do and who are actually involved with IEPs, please correct me and also expand upon anything I said. Please feel free to do that because the more information, the better. Because there could be things that I just left out because I just obviously I don't know. I'm just speaking from a lived experience perspective right now. So yeah, I mean, IEP was great for me. I mean, I was able to succeed. I did very well in school because of my accommodations. But I can't imagine that there are a lot of cases where students were denied accommodations or they got swept under the rug or they just got lost in the cycle of all the students that do need an IEP. And then you have, of course, there's teachers that just don't understand students who are disabled and they just don't really understand why you need it, especially when back in high school, no one knew I was blind because I didn't need to use a cane. I didn't really need to use Braille or my magnifiers. I had really good functioning vision. So for a lot of my peers, they made fun of me. They always said like, why do you get to have all these special, accommodations? Like you don't need them. You're either faking or, why can't we be like Chad because he gets all of these advantages that we don't get? But it's like, they're not really advantages. And of course, I'm not faking. This is a developing thing. This is a progressive eye condition. It doesn't mean that I lose my vision within the next 2 years. It's over 20 years. I lose it in different stages, and it comes and goes at different levels and quantities. So yeah. Sorry, maybe I got off topic there a little bit.
No, I don't think so. And it would be great, if there's anybody out there listening to this that's got, lived experience or is going through the challenges of whether it's getting an IEP for their young people or whether it's, going through EHCP and you'd like to discuss it, let us know. Maybe we could have you on the
Yeah,
show.
I mean, I think the one thing is, even with something like the ADA, when we do face discrimination and we sue, sadly, a lot of times we don't really get the support you think you should. Like you just think because there's something like the ADA, that means if anything ever happens, you're going to win the case. And sadly, that's not the reality. A lot of times there's a lot of corners that are cut. There's a lot of behind the scene politics that happen, and sometimes the courts just dismiss your case outright. So as much as we have these laws in place and these things like ADA or NHS or whatever in that say that you should have XYZ, but more often than not, when it really comes down to the point when we need that support, it's not there.
And that's exactly the same in the UK. I mean, I've got a couple of people that I'm working with at the moment. They've got EHCPs in place. It absolutely categorically says what support they should be getting within school, and they are not getting that support. And there's no comeback on that really, other than going through the courts. And of course, that takes time, money. It causes a lot of anguish and upset for the parents that have to see their child suffering, but they know that the only way they can do is go through the courts, which is incredibly stressful for everybody involved, which makes things just even worse. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not related to education, but I can maybe try and tie it into. I have a friend who is blind, lived in the same town I grew up and was raised in. He has a guide dog from Dogs Incorporated, aka Southeastern Guide Dogs. And he went to it's like this hotel, like a historic hotel where you could have lunch. And I think it was like maybe like in Atlanta or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he went there with his girlfriend and they went to go in to eat there. and the owner of the facility came out and says you cannot bring your dog in here. Of course, my friend's like, this is a guide dog, you know, started getting into the whole ADA kind of thing. This person would not budge. They said, oh, well, I'm allergic to dogs. If you look on the ADA, it says in black and white that having an allergy to dogs is not a valid excuse to deny access to a person with a guide dog. So then, you know, my friend basically says, well, I feel you're discriminating against me. I'm calling the cops, which he did. He called the cops to come. And while they're waiting there, again, a lot of times people with vision problems, and it gets to the whole thing like, well, what does it mean to look disabled or I have to look blind? But she literally went up to him because he was using his phone and said, I just want you to know I have you on camera using your phone when you said you're blind. So I have you on camera using your phone. So you're faking your blindness because you can use your phone. And it's like, well, one, it's called voiceover. And two, just because someone's blind doesn't mean they're totally blind. But he tried to pursue this, and the courts basically just dismissed it. They said, we don't think there's enough here. Sorry, but we're not going to pursue this. But then I try to think of that, like, tie that into like education. Be like, oh, hey, Mr. Brown, I just want to let you know that my name's Chad. I'm blind, so I need this and that and that. And then the teacher just goes, well, you know what? Actually, Chad, I saw you using your phone when you came into class, so I think you're faking. So I'm not going to give you any of your accommodations.
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? It's kind of when you start trying to classify what is complex and what isn't. I think you start to come unstuck pretty quickly because that means you have to have a rigid boundary. So, for instance, if somebody has physical impairments and autism, and let's say hearing issues, is that complex? I think that the answer to that is, well, it depends. Well, I wouldn't want to be the person that has to outline what that depends bit is.
Yeah, it's like with your country and like is it your prime minister or being like we're going to get more people into work
Yeah.
when it comes to the oh god, what is I can't remember the name of your
Sir Keir
disability.
Starmer
Yeah.
is the Prime Minister. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're like, we're gonna get more people into work, and you have to prove that you're disabled. We're going to change what actually does qualify and what does not qualify. If you can stand or shower, then you're not physically disabled enough, even though you use a wheelchair to navigate the world because you are ambulatory, but that doesn't mean you can stand and walk forever. So like that's where I see like that's where it gets problematic because like with your country, it's just like, oh, you can brush your hair, not disabled enough. You're no longer gonna get any of your PIP. That was what I was looking for, PIP.
Yeah. The thing is that
It's like a student comes in, oh, that student can dress themselves. They don't get shit.
and somebody, I mean, whichever way you look at it, when you look at these systems, it is always going to come down to that. But the fact is, schools are tax generation machines. You get people into education so they can do stuff that you can then charge for, which they then get taxed on. Yeah. Everything else is irrelevant. And that's not my view, by the way.
I just feel like we're making this harder than it needs to be. Yeah. And we're changing things that shouldn't change. I know my great state of Florida just recently did away with fulfillment degrees for disabled students. So say you're a student with dyscalculia, meaning you struggle with understanding numbers. So you might not be able to pass math class depending on how bad dyspraxia you have. And basically, there is an alternative degree that says, okay, well, obviously, because your disability, you just can't do this. So we're not going to force you to do something you can't do because of your disability. But you're still going to get to earn your degree. But we're not going to make you fulfill every, thing you have to in order to pass. Florida's basically like, nah, fuck that shit. You gotta pass the classes. No. Basically, like the way I say, it's like, they're like, nah, sorry, no more handouts. Basically, like you struggle with language, tough shit. You struggle with numbers, tough shit. You got to pass what we tell you to pass. And if you can't, then you don't get a degree, which I'm like, well, great. That just means that more disabled students are not going to be able to graduate from high school or college, and then they're not going to be able to get a job. And the unemployment rate for disabled people is already sky high. So you're just going to make it even more high.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, mate, we could talk about this for a lot longer, and there's just so much to uncover here. So I think, if it's okay, I think we should revisit this from time to time and see how things are progressing and whether some of the challenges that have been raised and discussed have been resolved, which sadly, it's not going to be quick. And I don't think it's going to be in the 3 or 4 years that they've given themselves either, but we'll see.
Nah, it's very complex issue. It's more than just changing language. It's more than just changing plans. Classification of groups, minority groups. The impact is much grander than a lot of the people that are making these changes can imagine. And I just don't think they think about it because they don't get impacted by it. And they themselves don't understand the impact these changes will have if they actually enforce them.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Which is why I like that for your country with the white paper. That's when advocacy groups and organizations, like RNIB and whatnot get in and they start to lobby. And, that's where you see like a lot of these changes usually not going through because the actual organizations, communities that will be infected by these types of changes basically, force these bodies that are trying to change it to admit that the idea wasn't good. And in terms of like execution, it was something that would have just not been able to be done properly.
The thing is no strategy ever survives first contact. If we could get our heads around the fact that it won't be right first of all, but we can trust the people that are pulling it together to, adjust and, change posture and things as it's needed when things don't work, I think it would work fine. But we have the tendency of writing these things on paper and then just sticking to it blindly. Excuse the language. So yeah, it's
no, I think that's
a
great point. Just to wrap it up, I think that's just the biggest concern is like, it's not so much the change, it's just the fact that we know that the people that are changing it, like, they're so rigid. So if they do a change and then we give you the information and educate you on why you should change something, they're so rigid. They're so hesitant to actually admit when they need to make a change because they just underestimated and misunderstood everything with these changes they wanted. And that's where the big thing is like, okay, if you want to make a change, great. But if you then ask these groups that have lived experience, well, why is this wrong? Or is there anything wrong? And they tell you, and then you go, great, we're not going to do anything about it. And then it's just like, well, that's the problem, is you guys make these changes, and then you're not willing to change your posture or your way of thinking when you are basically proven wrong or why something is problematic the way that it is.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, mate. That was a really good roundup.
Mm-hmm. Very good indeed. Very good indeed. So I have a question for you.
Oh, here we go. Go on, mate.
Yeah. As we start to wrap up, I always like to do something to kind of give us a little bit of a de-stressor. Just kind of wind down after a big topic like that, because we do talk about a lot of conversations that are they're not black and white, they're gray. So there's no wrong way to approach it, just open communication and debate. But it can definitely be heavy, so we always try and wind down when we can. And now I'm going to ask this question because it is a little bit morbid, but it's still kind of funny to ask because I think it'll tell people a little bit more about us, and then I'd be interested to hear what people have to say about this. But Simon, if you were on your deathbed and you could have a couple of things to eat for your last meal before you passed on to wherever it is you believe you go when you pass on, what would be your last meal? And this is inspired by a YouTube channel I watch called Mythical Kitchen, and they do a series called Last Meals where they invite celebrities on to basically have a discussion about their thoughts on death, their career, important parts of their life, but also why a food they chose was chosen and why they like it so much. And they usually do 4, maybe 5 courses. Some people won't, maybe will have less, some have a ton. But let's say you get, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Let's say you get 4 courses, and you can have at least 2 foods per course. What would Simon eat before he shoved off?
Well, funny you should ask that, but I have considered this. Because it's the last blowout before we say our goodbyes. So I wouldn't mix it up too much. I would probably go for a traditional Indian meal. Now, the reason I say traditional Indian meal is because I think the Indian meals that we generally have are sort of British variants of them rather than the real tradition if you go to the country. But I would start off with something called a Nargis kebab. Now, I don't know whether this is a local thing to my local curry house called the Rajshahi in Tewkesbury, but it is a hard-boiled egg wrapped in keema lamb with an omelette draped over the top with a kind of white sauce. And I love that. So that would be my first course.
That sounds pretty delicious.
It's kind of an Indian Scotch egg.
Yeah. Because by the way, I love Scotch eggs. I ate so much of those when I was over in London.
Yeah. And then going on to my second course, I would go for a king prawn saguala, which is not really saucy, but it's got a lot of spinach in it. It's got the king prawns, and it would need a lot of king prawns, more than I get in my regular takeaway.
Do you like it? Do we go heavy on garlic or no?
Yeah. Saguala's got lots of garlic. Lots of sliced garlic, big chunky.
My whole thing is for me, there's nothing as too much garlic. In my opinion, if I eat something and then I breathe and then it kills a vampire, perfect.
Just so that we can't be brought back as a vampire. It's a good idea. So, yep. So that would be the main. So now I have to switch it up, because in the UK generally they have some traditional Indian desserts, but not a lot. So you don't generally have a dessert in your local Indian. So then I'd have to change to a really traditional dessert for me. So my wife Jane makes an amazing chocolate cake, with chocolate icing and chocolate buttons and things like that, and it's amazing with custard. So, seem I'm on my deathbed, I might as well have one of my wife's chocolate cakes covered in custard until I explode, because that would just be heaven for me. And then for the fourth course, it'd have to be cheese and biscuits.
Cheesy biscuits.
Cheese and biscuits.
Cheese
So,
and biscuits.
yeah, lots of different cheeses and different types of biscuits and crackers and things like that. That would. Am I allowed to have a coffee afterwards as well, or is that classed as
Of course,
another?
you're allowed to have a coffee.
Okay. Yeah. So cheese and biscuits with plenty of coffee on tap, and I think that would bring my perfect meal to an end. But of course, mate, you can't ask me that question without, because it makes me feel
Well,
you've been
that
thinking about it. So go for it. What's yours?
I will share as well, but I love asking this question because it's like, what are people's inclinations with food? Like, what do they gravitate towards? Like, you know, I would not have pegged you as someone who's like super heavy on Indian food, but I mean, I get it though. I mean, I had some Indian food over in London, so good, so good. So I get it. But I think food just tells a lot about people. And it's always fun to learn like what are a person's favorite, go tos when it comes to food. So if you guys are in the chat or hear this after the fact, let us know what your last meal would be, because I think it's fun to talk about food. Because I'm a foodie, and I'm going to stop stalling, and I will tell you what my last meal would be. um, so I would start with a double bacon cheeseburger from Whataburger. Um, it is my favorite fast food burger restaurant. I love it more than any other fast food restaurant available in America. So double bacon cheeseburger, lettuce, onion, pickles, ketchup, mayo, and then of course gotta have French fries. But they have spicy ketchup at Whataburger, and it's so good. So all the spicy ketchup, and then a medium sweet tea. And the reason I do the medium sweet tea, because if you've ever been in a Whataburger, you know. But if you haven't, their cup sizes are ridiculous. So a small is actually the size of a medium. Their medium is more the size of a large. And then their large is like a big gulp from 7-Eleven. So it's like you get the medium because you're basically getting a large tea. So that's what I do for course one. Course two, I mean, I'm going to splurge and be a total American fatso and get as much Asian food as I can in course two. So give me some beef bulgogi, medium heat. Give me some white rice. Give me kimchi, all the kimchi. Cucumber, cabbage, broccoli, apple, radish. Give me the kimchi. Give me some Korean ribs. And then give me a dynamite roll from my favorite sushi joint, Kiku Sushi and Grill. And a glass of their sweet tea, because I really like their sweet tea. So
We're already on the
that's
second
course two.
Oh.
It only gets more embarrassing from there, because I don't stop splurging when we get to course three. Course three would be my dad's homemade spaghetti with garlic bread and a glass of Fragolino wine. It is a red wine that is slightly strawberry flavored. It is the best tasting wine I've ever had, and the perfect wine to pair with my dad's homemade spaghetti. And then, of course, I'm doing a plate of beef ribs, homemade mac and cheese, collard greens, black eyed peas, fried cornbread, and then a old fashioned whiskey.
Mate, you know somebody's got to carry you to your final resting place.
Yeah,
Right?
and and they better have lifted. Better have done leg day, back day, and shoulder day.
Wow.
Because
so
course 4 is still here. We're still got course 4.
Well,
Course 4.
I'm down for this. Go.
Course 4, we get my mom's homemade carrot cake. The best carrot cake in the world. And also, we get my mom's homemade apple cake with butter pecan ice cream. And then we finish it with a hazelnut cappuccino. And then that's it. I explode and I go to heaven.
Oh, well, mate, to be fair, if you weren't already dying, after that.
My colon would explode and I'd die right there at the table.
Well, if you live until you've eaten it, I mean, you've given yourself an extra couple of months there just to get through your menu. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yes, so what we've learned is that I am a fat kid, but of course I am. I mean, I was 250 pounds at one point in my life. I mean, I am a fat kid at heart. I always will be. Don't ever see that changing. I love food, and I have a very toxic love relationship with food.
I'm with you, mate. I love food. It is my downfall, but I can't help it. You know, people go, you eat a packet of biscuits, and it's like, well, you can't open up and just have one biscuit. By the time you start dunking it in your tea, very British thing to do, I know. Oh, of course, when I'm saying biscuit, I mean cookie for our US fans. You know, you start and then you dunk, and before you know it, the packet's gone.
Same with
Great.
chips or crisp,
Oh,
as you call them. You know, you open a
yeah.
can of those or a bag of those, just like, all right, I'm just going to have like 2 handfuls, and then you're like already at the bottom of the bag. What have I done with my life today?
Oh, mate, that reminds me of when we got together and I was staying with you and you bought those pickle crisps. Oh my God,
They're
they
really
were
good, by
amazing.
the way. If
Yeah,
if those sound gross, just think of a more maybe just a tangier
salt and
okay,
vinegar.
salt. Yes, more of a
Yeah,
tangier salt and vinegar,
yeah, I agree. They're fantastic.
which is the
And it,
best chip flavor.
yeah. Anyway, my friend, I think we've had some fun. We've had some deep discussions. I think it's time to say our farewells.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys for listening. We're happy to be back. We're happy to be here on Riverside. We've got more ability to make the show accessible to plenty of more communities and audiences. So please make sure to share the podcast wherever it is you're listening to. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies. The Unsighted Radio, UNSY as in Yankee, TED, The Unsighted Radio. It's available on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Please consider becoming a member of the Unsighted Army. We would love to have you. Here, you will not go unseen. You will be seen. You will be acknowledged, and you will be loved. So we hope that you become a member of the Unsighted Army. But that's it for us today. Until we meet again, please take care of yourselves. Be nice, be kind, and until we see each other again, we love you, and bye-bye.
We'll see you on the other side.